welcome to Agric Economy on ARS and Television, Abuja, Nigeria. I am Khadija Oluwatoyin Amin. Today on the program, we shall take a look at the environmental degradation effect on food security, and you know how we do it on the program. I'm going to take you shortly on what environmental degradation means, and of course, we know that food sustainability only means that food for all at all time. And before we bring in our guest, who is in the person of Mr. Gabriel to share his thoughts and expertise with us on today's program, we'll take a quick break and then take a report before we come in. Stay tuned.
Deforestation, overgrazing, pollution, and climate change all contribute to environmental degradation and can lead to decreased crop yields and water shortages. These factors can all contribute to poverty as people are unable to produce enough food to feed their families. Climate change and environmental degradation, including biodiversity loss, remain the biggest challenges that present and future generations face. The latest report of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change (PCC) documents the widespread and pervasive impact of climate change on humans and socio-ecology systems and indicates that we are set to surpass the 1.5 degrees Celsius threshold by the year 2040. At the same time, in many regions of the world, natural resources such as land, forest, and water have been reported to be increasingly degraded or depleted, and more species are threatened with global extinction than ever before. To mitigate climate change, more land needs to function as a carbon sink by extracting CO2 from the atmosphere, while the conservation of biodiversity requires more land to be protected and restored. This dilemma of climate change and environmental degradation raises several security concerns as it significantly increases the likelihood of food insecurity, conflicts, and crimes in the absence of trust and cooperation, and migration and forced displacement. This jeopardizes individual, communal, national, and international security.
Welcome back. It's Agric Economy on ARS and Television in Mabushi, Abuja, Nigeria, and my guest is already seated in the person of Mr. Gabriel Dankolo. Welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you for having me.
We know that when we talk environmental degradation in farm practices are, of different, situations warrant different. We have areas of riverine areas. We have that of, like the overfishing we talked about, and so many areas like that. We have areas where they'll tell you we've been planting on this particular land, and then we cannot continue. We have to give the land some break and then come back. In the face of all of these technological advancements, was there really need? Let's start from there. Are we supposed to still be talking about environmental degradation in farming?
Actually, the agricultural practices are advanced to the extent that farming practices should also improve with it. If you look at other countries, they have gotten to the stage of all year-round farming that is not seasonal. And because when you practice all year-round farming, it means you are using improved implements, you understand the soil texture, you are using integrated farming techniques to ensure that the products that used to be seasonal are now planted all year round. And also you are using informed agricultural research seedlings that can also improve and be able to grow at any point in time of the season. So when you look at countries like Israel, the United States, China, and the rest that are practicing this integrated farming process that enables them to grow all the crops that they would want all year round, you'll see that they enjoy what we call food sustainability. They also enjoy accessibility to food all year round, unlike the practice in Nigeria, whereby, just like we said, the farming practices allows a farm to stay for probably 6 months or a year without being cultivated because of the environmental factors, because we are still using the old farming practices, which causes the ripple effect or the resultant effect is that it leads to shortage of food to the market, and it also leads to high prices of food, which will eventually lead to food inflation that Nigeria is experiencing. So when you put environmental degradation vis-a-vis with our farming practices, you will see that it's one of the major factors that has affected food security in Nigeria. When we also look at the riverine areas, for example, due to oil spillage and other degradation on the environment, it has prevented the farmers in those areas to be able to cultivate some crops. You will see that in most riverine areas, the only crops that they grow most of the time are palm trees and bananas and the rest. Whereas because of the degradation of their environment, they cannot allow them to grow some specific crops, which they now need to source from other states. And due to the distance of bringing it from those areas, it makes those food products to be very expensive in those areas. And it's by the reason of this environmental degradation that we're talking about. But if we go back to what we discussed when it comes to improved farming practices, these issues can also be addressed, and to ensure that enough products can be generated from a small portion of land if we are talking of integrated farming. And that is where Nigeria needs to go now. Just like I've said in my previous interviews, that is the way the world is going. Integrated farming, using a small portion of land to gain so much than using a large expanse of land to harvest so little. That is where the world is going. That's where the world is presently. And Nigeria cannot be left behind. So it's very important that, yes, environmental degradation is affecting farming practices, but there are other measures we can use to be able to combat the challenges that comes from environmental degradation.
Now looking at these practices we talk about, because I'm very sure some farmers are listening and want to know, okay, what kind of practices or areas that will have examples of environmental degradation and their ripple effects.
Yes, just like I said earlier, when we have oil spillage in most of the riverine areas or oil producing states, it affects the agricultural practices. When we have overfishing in one of our riverine areas, it also affects the products that comes out, the effectiveness of getting enough fish to feed the people. So these are key areas that attention needs to be drawn into. Yes, we have in the northern states where probably the only challenge they will have will be the insecurity. It will not be oil spillage, it will not be overfishing and the others. So those ones can improve on the agricultural practices, but we need to put more attention in these areas where we have this environmental degradation affecting erosion areas in the southeast that are affecting farming practices, and riverine areas, oil producing states that are having challenges producing what they are supposed to eat. That is where this integrated farming needs to come into place, where a particular portion of land that is not so large, that is also secure, can be used through integrated farming practices to produce desirable crops for that area and get higher yields based on improved seedlings that will be used in those areas. So the government needs to categorize these areas as well. Just like we say, for example, educational disadvantaged states. So when you come from such states, for example, to the federal universities, they lower the cutoff mark for you because of where you are coming from. So we can apply such measures to environmentally disadvantaged communities or states as regards agricultural practices, and be able to channel resources in those areas to improve their farming practices, their agricultural practices, so that they will not only be reliant on other agrarian areas to feed themselves. Looking at the logistics, the costs and other factors that come into it. I can tell you for free that, for example, a basket of tomato could be sold, now that it has come down, in Kano, for example, for 60,000. a big basket. When it goes to a place like rivers that do not produce tomato, because of environmental degradation has affected the soil, that it cannot produce tomatoes, then it will be double of the price. So is an environmentally disadvantaged state when it comes to agriculture, and that is where the state and the federal government needs to collaborate with the Ministry of Agric to look at improved farming techniques, to be able to allow the states to be able to grow other products apart from banana and palm trees that they have. So these are where these integrated farming practices need to come into play, so that areas that are not affected, which are not so much, can be used for integrated farming. And also these products that are being transported at a very high cost to these states can also be produced locally. And even if there will be need to bring some more, the ones that are being produced locally will cushion the effect and reduce the price drastically, unlike what we have presently. So these environmental disadvantaged states need to be looked into as well, due to environmental degradation. The the southeast states that have these challenges needs to be looked into.
Okay, you talked about some parts of the north, being able to grow. They have more, adaptable soil to grow some of these, crops that we eat that are the major. But when you go to states like Kano, on your entering Kano, you see that they have this artificial, is it dam where water and the rest of it. And in the long run, you see that some farmlands have been abandoned. Sometimes they'll tell you the dam became uncontrollable, or the soil became bad for the particular crop. That how do we control this? How do we, ensure that these practices? You talked about having the old practices being still what is being used till now.
Yes.
How do we face them out?
Now, the one thing that we need to know is that as much as the federal government through the Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security is trying its best, the onus lies on the states, the affected states, to be able to come up with also measures to be able to combat this. Now, we have, for example, using Kano as an example, we have an irrigation system in Kano that should be able to help the various local governments to be able to water their farms and improve on their system. But that does not stop there. There should be high-level maintenance of the irrigation system as it's been done on other countries. There should be continuous soil testing and soil improvement techniques to be able to also make sure that the soil is always available for farming. 3, there should also be improved fertilizer distribution to the extent that it will be adequately utilized and you can be able to get enough yield per hectare. And 4th, agric extension officers are supposed to be encouraged by the state. Now, the problem we have in this country, which most people are failing to realize, even those that went out to do protests, is that they are putting the ball solely on the head of the federal government. And the federal government can do so much, while the states, which are directly responsible for the people, sit and watch. And that is where we are in this country. The states are not taking up the challenge that is expected from them. In the area of agriculture, I believe that every state should have the driving seat in ensuring that the state is coming tops in producing some particular agricultural products that they will be known for. So, but you see, most of the times, the states sometimes wait for the ministry, federal ministry, or other international partners to come and implement agricultural programs in their state, whereas the states are supposed to take the lead. So in Kano, for example, the state government can ensure that the irrigation system is working all year round. The state government can ensure that there is a body of experts that ensures that they move around, do soil testing, look at the texture to make sure that the soil in the state is enough to be able to support the kind of agricultural products that Kano State is known for. The agric extension staff in Kano State, under Kano State Ministry of Agriculture, should also be up and doing by the prompting of the state to ensure that there is no law or there is no challenge that will not be surmounted by the state before waiting for the federal government or international intervention in those areas.
Okay, yes, there is need for state governments now that we even have the local government autonomy,
Yes.
for them to look inward and ensure that these little things that we feel are little, would go a long way in ensuring that there's food sustainability. Because once there is food, once the stomach is filled up, Yoruba would say half of the problem is being solved. On that note, we'll quickly go on a break. On return, the program continues. Stay tuned.
The Agricultural Research Council of Nigeria (ARCN) coordinates the activities of research institutes and is responsible for supervision, regulation, coordination of research activities and programs of higher institutions in Nigeria. I'm Professor Hamidu Shaributu since assumption as Executive Secretary of ARCN in April 2020 has solidified the transformation of agriculture in Nigeria through strategic and meaningful execution of research findings for improvement of the agricultural sector.
For grains, we have the parabolic solar dryers. These are specialized solar dryers used for drying agricultural produce such as whole grains, yam and cassava chips, fruits and vegetables more efficiently. It is made of a special material that concentrates the rays of the sun within the enclosure while eliminating harmful ultraviolet radiation. Products dried are free from contaminants and are hygienic.
The parabolic shaped solar dryer is a need-based technology because virtually when we travel all over the country, you will see by the roadside, you see people drying all sorts of agricultural produce. Some spread their own on bare ground, and by the time the vehicles are moving, the raised dust, the dust stay on the products. The reptiles will come, they will eat whatever they can eat, drop their feces and their urine on it, and the owner comes in the evening to pack everything together and still eat that product. And the product has been contaminated, and we feel this is not right, and it is part of our mandate to make sure that we set it right, and that was what led to this, so that we can solve this problem at the grassroots level. Instead of drying by the roadside, drying on just bare ground in their villages, when they have this as a drying center, everybody in the community can bring their product there, spread on the tray, and they get it dry under hygienic condition that is covered. And the dryer also have another property to screen the ultraviolet ray of the sun, which is also can cause hazard to human health.
As visionary captain by restoring the council's glory with the first ever agricultural television and radio station in Nigeria, with well-equipped studios parading state-of-the-art equipment.
The Agricultural Research Council of Nigeria also has a brand new electronic library to further promote research and visualizations of deep thoughts on agricultural development in Nigeria.
The museum, located in the Senator Abdullahi Adamu Center, is an agricultural museum saddled with the responsibility of keeping records of agricultural findings, discoveries, researches for continuity and history purposes.
ARCN,
promoting agriculture.
Welcome back. The program is the Agric Economy on ARCN Television, Abuja, Nigeria, and we've been talking to our guest who's been taking us through on environmental degradation and its effects. We've seen, foreign interventions. We've seen NGOs come on board, and then some of these things, according to some farmers, still do not get to them. First hand, is a close person to me, who is a farmer as well, who, you go for meetings, you sit down all day, every day, and then maybe they'll tell you their training and the rest of it. At the end of the 3-day training and all, you go with a cup of fertilizer that cannot even plant, cannot go through a roll of a corn, for example, a roll of corn plantation, or how will I put it? And I see that this is a part of the ripple effect to environmental degradation, because these farmers will now have to go back to traditional way of farming, and then because they do not have choice. Fertilizer is 28,000 naira now in the market, and all over. So what's your advice to farmers?
So when it comes to foreign donors bringing farm implements, for example, fertilizers to the people, if they have the intention of bringing 1,000 bags, for example, because they are going to interface with either federal or state officials, those state officials negotiate their own before it gets down or trickles down to the farmers. If, for example, a foreign donor is bringing 1,000 bags of fertilizers, they negotiate and say, okay, 50% of these bags go to one special intervention, so that will be diverted. So the remaining 50% will now be shared among a large number of farmers that have formed themselves as an association. So in a situation whereby, under normal circumstances, an individual farmer is supposed to get a bag, for example, that farmer gets a quarter of a bag or even less than that, because of illegal or unwholesome practices of officials that need to partner with this foreign donor. So at the end of the day, we discover that there is no way that these farmers will not go back to their normal agricultural practices that will lead to environmental degradation. So a lot still needs to be done as regards the greed that is prevailing in government offices, both federal, state, and local government, because they feel that any opportunity must be utilized to the fullest. And the foreign donors, even knowing our nature, will have prepared for such. So at the end of the day, they will just do what they feel that they can do and leave the rest. So that's why you see them, they know that they cannot prevent capacity development like seminars, training. But when it comes to the tangibles in the area of the farm implements, fertilizers, and the rest, they will just have to release it one way or the other, because they cannot do it on their own without conjunction with the state or federal government. So that is where the problem is. We are also our own problems, and these officials, what I feel is that there needs to be a call out by this farmers association, by anyone that is in position to do that, so that this corporate can be brought to book. Because I believe that when some of them are exposed, others will take a cue and stop that kind of practice that is affecting Nigeria generally. And this is a major problem that we need to look into, so that our farming practices can be wholesome, our farmers can practice modern techniques with the help of foreign donors, with the assistance of both federal and state government and local government, so that we can be able to match up with the 21st century farming practice as it's been done in other climes.
Thank you so much for speaking with us on the program this week.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, that's it. You've heard it. There's need to be sincere. When I come to the program and say there is need for sincerity of purpose, this is what we're saying. Every hand must be on deck in ensuring that the country actually moves forward. We see what happens in developed countries. They started from here, yes. They started from undeveloped until they're able to push through and gain their stand. And today they're enjoying the whole benefit of these, perseverance and the whole patience. So on this note, I'll say to Nigerians, have sincerity of purpose in any situation, any position you find yourself. Nigeria is ours, and there's no other place we can call ours. On this note, we say thank you for joining us on Agric Economy for this week. I am Khadija Oluwatoyin. I'm saying bye for now.